Heart of the World by H. Rider Haggard. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Chapter 23. Our Flight and How It Ended. "How came this lady here, Maya, and what does she seek?" the señor asked. "I do not know how she came," gasped his wife. "My waiting women were gone, and I had begun to prepare myself for sleep, when, looking in yonder mirror, I saw her behind me, having in her hand a naked knife, and searching the room with her eyes. Presently they fell upon the cradle, and lifting the knife, she took a step towards it. Then I turned and gripped her, holding her as well as I was able, but she was too strong for me, and dragged me forward so that, had it not been for Ignatio, by now she would have made an end of our son." "Is this true?" said the señor to Nahua. "It is true, white man," she answered. "Why do you desire to kill one so innocent?" he asked again. "Is it not natural that I should wish to destroy the child who is to supplant my child, and to break the heart of the woman who has broken my heart?" Nahua answered sullenly. "Amongst many other things I have learned, white man, of that ceremony which is to take place tomorrow, whereat my husband is to be deposed, and my child dishonoured, that they may make room for you and for your child, you, the white wanderer, and your son, the heaven-born, the foreordained." "What have we to do with these things, O woman with the heart of a puma?" he asked. "If the call is to be driven from his place, it is because of his crimes, and if you and yours are to be set in it, white man, without doubt it is because of your virtues. And yet, O black-hearted knave that you are, I tell you I know the truth. I know how you forged the writings, setting the false for the true within the holy symbol of the heart. I know also that my father helped you to the deed, for although he is dead, he wrote down the tale before he died, and gave it to me together with the ancient prophecy that you dared to steal from the holy sanctuary. Yes, I have the proofs, and when needful I will show them. I did not come here to do murder, at least not upon the infant, but the sight of it sleeping in its cradle overcame me, and of a sudden I determined to wreak my wrongs upon it and upon its mother. In this I have failed, but when I denounce you to the council, then I shall not fail. Then you will be known for what you are, and die the death that you deserve." "It comes into my mind, husband," said Maya coldly, "that if we would save our own lives, we must rob this woman of hers. Such a doom she has richly earned, nor will any blame us when they learn what was her errand here." Now when she heard these words, Nahua struggled in the señor's grasp, and opened her mouth as though to scream. "Be silent," he said, "if you wish to keep your soul in you. Ignatio, close the doors and give me yonder shawl." I did so, and with the shawl we bound Nahua's arms behind her, fastening it over her mouth so that she could make no sound. Then we took a leather girdle and strapped it about her knees, so that she could not move, but lay helpless on the floor, glaring at us with fierce eyes. "Now let us take counsel," I said. "Yes," answered the señor, "let us take counsel, for we need it. One of two things we must do: kill that woman, or fly the city, for if she leaves this place alive, we are certainly doomed to death before the altar, I and the child also." "Fly," said Maya. "How can we fly when I am still weak, and the babe is so young and tender? Should we succeed in escaping from the city and across the lake, certainly we must perish among the snows of the mountains, or in the deserts beyond. Also, we should be missed and overtaken." "Then Nahua must die," said the señor. "Could we not swear her to silence if we released her?" I asked, for I shrank from such a dreadful deed, however just and necessary it might be. Swear her to silence, said Maya contemptuously. As easily might you swear a snake not to use its fangs if one should chance to tread on it. Do you understand that this woman hates me so bitterly, who, as she thinks, has robbed her of her husband's love, that she would gladly die herself, if thereby she could bring about my death and that of those who are dear to me? So soon as she could leave her bed of sickness, she came here to taunt me with the doom she had prepared, knowing that I was alone. Then she saw the child, and so great was her desire for revenge that she could not even wait till the law should wreak it for her. No, the issue is plain. If we cannot fly, either she must die or we must. Is it not so, Ignacio? It seems that it is so, I answered sadly, and yet the thing is awful. It is awful, but it must be done, said the señor, and it falls on me to do it for the sake of my wife and child. Alas, that I was ever born, that I should live to stand face to face with such necessity. Could not another hand be found? No, for then we should confess ourselves as murderers. Give me the knife. Nay, my hands will serve, and this end will seem more natural, for I can say that when I found her in the act of murder, I seized her and killed her suddenly by my strength alone, not meaning it in my wrath. Now he stepped to where Nahua lay and knelt beside her, and we two drew away sick at heart and hid our faces in our hands. Presently he was with us again. "Is it done?" asked Maya hoarsely. "No, nor will by me," he answered in a fierce voice. "Sooner would I choke the breath out of my own body than strangle this defenceless woman, cruel-hearted, murderous though she is. If she is to be killed, some other man must do the deed." "Then it will remain undone," said Maya. "Now, since we have thus determined, let us think of flight, for the night draws on, and in flight is our only hope." "What then is to be done with this woman?" I asked. "We cannot take her with us." "No, but we can leave her here gagged and bound till they chance to find her," answered the señor. "Hearken, Nahua, we spare you, and to do it go forth to our own deaths. May your fierce heart learn a lesson of mercy from the deed. Farewell." 2 hours had gone by, and 3 figures wrapped in rough /serapes, such as the common people wear, one of whom, a woman, carried an infant in her arms, might have been seen cautiously descending the city wall by means of a wooden ladder that ran from its summit to a jetty built upon the piers at the foot of it, which was used as a mooring place for boats during the months of inundation. As was common at this season of the year, the lake was already rising, and floating in the shallow water at the end of the jetty lay a pleasure skiff, which the señor and I, accustomed to use for the purposes of fishing whenever we could escape for a few hours from our wearisome life in the city. Into this skiff we entered, and having hoisted the sail, set our course by the stars, steering for that village whence a year before we had embarked for the City of the Heart. The wind being favourable to us, our progress was rapid, and by the first grey light of dawn we caught sight of the village not a mile away. Here, however, we did not dare to land, for we should be seen and recognised. Therefore we beached our boat behind the shelter of some dwarf water palms 3 furlongs or more below the village, and having hidden it as well as we were able, set out at once towards the mountains. Passing round the back of the village without being seen, for as yet folk were scarcely astir, we began our dreadful journey. For a while Maya bore up well, but as the heat of the day increased, she showed signs of tiring, which was little to be wondered at, seeing that she carried in her arms a child not 3 weeks old. At midday we halted that she might rest, hiding ourselves beneath a tree by the banks of a brook, and eating such food as we had brought with us. In the early afternoon we started on again, and for the rest of that dreary day struggled forwards as best we could, the señor and I carrying the infant alternately in addition to our other burdens. At length the evening fell, and we camped for the night, if camping it can be called, to sleep beneath the shadow of a cedar tree, without fire and with little food, having no covering except our serapes. Towards morning the air grew cold, for already we were at some height above the lake, and the tender infant began to wail piteously, a wail that wrung our hearts. Still we rose with the sun and went on our way, for it seemed that there was nothing else to do. Throughout that day, with ever wearying footsteps, we journeyed, till at sunset we reached the snow line and saw before us the hunter's rest house where we had slept when first we entered the country of the Heart. "Let us go in," said Maya, "and find food and shelter for the night." Now our plan had been to avoid this house and gain the pass, where we proposed to stay till daybreak, and then to travel down the mountain slopes into the wilderness. "If we enter there, Maya, we shall be trapped," said the señor. "Our only safety lies in travelling through the pass before we are overtaken, for it is against the law that any of your people should follow us into the wilderness." "If we do not enter, my child will die in the cold," she answered. "You were too tender to secure our safety by putting that would-be murderess to death. Have you, then, the heart, husband, to kill your own child?" Now at these words I saw the señor's eyes fill with tears, but he said only, "Be it as you will." By now, indeed, we understood, all three of us, that if we would save our lives, must suffer the child to die, and however great our necessity, this we could not do. So we went up to the house and entered, and there by the fire sat the same man and his wife, whom we had found in this room a year ago. "Who are you?" he cried, springing up. "Pardon, lady, but in that garb I did not know you." "It is best that you should not know us," said Maya. "We are wanderers who have lost their way out hunting. Give us food, as you are bound to do." Then the man and his wife, who were kindly people, made obeisance to us, and set of the best they had before us. We ate, and after eating slept, for we were very weary, bidding the man watch and tell us if he saw any stranger approaching the house. Before dawn he woke us, and we rose. A little later he came into my room and told me that a large body of men were in sight of the house. Then I knew that it was finished, and called the others. "Now there are three things that we can do," I said: "fly towards the pass, defend this house, or surrender ourselves." "There is no time to fly," answered the señor. "Therefore it is my counsel that we fight." "Is it your counsel that two men armed with bows, for our firearms had been taken from us on the pyramid, and we had never been able to recover them, should engage with 50? Well, friend, we can try it if you wish, and perhaps it will be as good a way of meeting our deaths as any other." "This is folly," broke in Maya. "There is but one thing to do: yield ourselves and trust to fortune, if indeed fortune has any good in store for us. Only I wish that we had done it before we undertook this weary journey." As she spoke, by the light of the rising sun we saw a great number of men forming a circle round the house. With them were several captains and lords, and among them I recognized Dimas and Tikal. "Let us put a bold face on it," said Maya. So we opened the door, walked out, and came into the presence of Tikal, Dimas, and the other lords. "Whom do you seek that you come with an armed force?" asked Maya. "Whom should I seek but your fair self, cousin?" answered Tikal, and I saw that his eye was wild as though with drink. If Naua, my wife, had had her way, she would have let you go, for she desires to see the last of you. But her will is not my will, nor her desire my desire, and as it chances, we have come up with you in time." Maya turned from him and with a scornful gesture addressed herself to Dimas, saying, "Tell us of what we are charged, that you follow us as though we were evildoers." "Lady," the old priest answered gravely, "it would seem that you have earned this name, you and your companions together. Listen. 2 days since you were missing, and the Lady Naua was also missing. Search was made, and at last your private apartments were broken open, and there she was discovered, bound and gagged. From her we learned the secret of your flight, and followed after you." "Did she then tell you why we fled?" asked Maya. "Did she tell you that she crept to my chamber like a thief in the night, and there was found in the act of doing murder on my child?" "No, lady, she told us nothing of this. Indeed, her manner was strange, for as soon as she was recovered somewhat, she took back her words and said that she knew naught of you or your plans, and that she had fled. We should do well to let you go before worse things happen. But knowing that for all this she had reasons easy to be guessed, we followed and found you, and now we arrest you to answer before the Council for your great sins, in that you have broken your solemn oaths by attempting to leave the land without the consent of the Council, and have added to your crimes by taking with you this child, the heaven-sent deliverer on whom rest the hopes of our race." "If we have broken our oaths," said Maya, "we broke them to save our lives. Were we then to stop in the city till the knife of the assassin found us out? On the very night of my marriage a murderer was set upon my husband, and perhaps one stands there," and she pointed to Tikal, "who could tell us who he was and whence he came. 3 days ago another murderer sought the life of our child, and that murderer the wife of the Lord Tikal. Is it then a sin that we should take from the land one whose life is not safe within it?" "All these matters you can lay before the Council, lady," answered Dimas, "and if Naua is what you say, without a doubt she must suffer for her crime. Yet her evil doing cannot pay for yours, for when you found yourself in danger you should have claimed protection from those who could give it, and not have taken yourselves to flight like thieves in terror of the watch. Come, enter the litter that is prepared for you, and let us be going." "As you will," she said, "but one thing I pray of you. Let this man, my cousin, Tikal, the /cacique, may be kept away from me, for the sight of him is hateful to me, seeing that, not content with plotting to kill my husband and my child, he puts me to shame continually by the offer of his love." "It shall be as you wish, lady. Your husband and your friend can travel by your side, and guards shall surround your litter to see that none molest you." Then we started. Of our journey back there is nothing to tell, unless it is to say that after its own fashion it was even more wretched than that which we had just accomplished. Then, indeed, we were footsore, hungry, and racked with fears, but at least the hope of freedom shone before us like a guiding star, whereas now, although we travelled in comfort, it was to find shame, exposure, and death awaiting us at last. For my part, indeed, this thought did not move me very much, seeing that hope had left me, and without hope I no longer wished to live. You, my friend, for whom I write this history, may think my saying strange, but had you stood where I stood that day, you would not wonder at it. Even now I sometimes dream that I am back in the City of the Heart, and wake cold with fear as a man wakes from some haunted sleep. True, there I had place and power and luxury, But oh, sooner would I have earned my livelihood herding cattle in the wilderness than fret away my life within that golden cage. What to me were the banquets and their empty pleasures, or their petty strivings for rank and title? To me, who all my days had followed the star of my high aim, that star which was now setting. Maya and the señor had each other and their child to console them, but I had nothing except such friendship as they chose to spare me. The memory of my many failures, the clinging bitterness of conscience, the fear of vengeance to be wreaked, and the hope of peace beyond the end. Therefore I, an outworn and disappointed man, was prepared to welcome the doom that awaited me, but how would it be with the others who were still full of love and youth? Late that night we reached the city and were led, not to the palace where we lived, but towards the enclosure of the pyramid. "How is this?" asked Maya of the captain of the guard. "Our road lies yonder." "No, lady," he answered, "my orders are to take you up the stairway of the pyramid." Now Maya pressed her face against the face of her child and sobbed, for she knew that once more we must inhabit the darksome vault where her father had been taken to die. They led us up the stair and down the narrow way till we stood in the lamplit hall and heard our prison gates clash behind us. Then they gave us food and let us alone. Never did I pass a more evil night, for strive as I would to win it, sleep fled from me, and I tossed upon my couch, wondering where my bed would be on the morrow, after we had stood before the council of the sanctuary of the heart of Nahua had borne witness against us. I remembered that shaft before the altar, and seemed to hear the murmur of the water in its depths. Well, as I have said, I did not fear to die, for God is merciful to sinners, but oh, it was dreadful to meet this liar's doom, and to remember that it was I who brought the señor here to share it. As I mused thus, even through the massive walls of the vault I heard a woman scream, and springing from my bed I ran into the central hall where the lamps burned always. Here I met Maya, clad in her night dress only, and speeding down the hall, her wide eyes filled with terror. "What has happened?" I said, stopping her as I spoke. The señor came up. "Oh, I have dreamed," she gasped. "I have dreamed a fearful dream. I dreamed that my father came to me, and I cannot tell it. The child," and she broke down utterly and could say no more. "This place is full of evil memories, and her strength is shattered," said the señor when we had calmed her somewhat. "Come back, wife, and sleep." "Sleep," she answered. "I do not think I shall ever sleep again. And yet, unless I sleep, I shall go mad. Oh, that vision! Truly the curse of Mattai has taken hold of me." Some few hours later we met again in the great hall, but Maya said nothing of her dream, nor did I ask her to tell it, though I could see from her face that it was not forgotten. We ate, or made pretence to eat, and sat for a while in silence, till at length the gates opened, and through them came Dimas and some companion priests. Bidding these to stand back, he advanced alone and greeted us kindly. "I am grieved," he said, "that you should again be called upon to occupy this gloomy lodging, but I had no choice in the matter, since I am but the servant of the council, and its commands were strict. It was feared lest the infant might be spirited away were you left at liberty." "It will soon be spirited away indeed, Dimas," said Maya, "if it be kept here in the darkness. Already the child pines. Within a week he will be dead. Have no fear, lady, your imprisonment is not for long, for this very night, the night of the rising of waters, you will all of you be put upon your trial before the council in the sanctuary, and charged with the crime of attempting to escape the land." "Is there no other charge?" asked Maya. "None, lady, that I have heard of. What other charge should there be?" "And what will be the verdict of the council?" "I cannot say, lady, but I know that none wish to deal harshly with you, and if that charge which you bring against the Lady Naua can be proved, it will go in your favour. The crime you have attempted is a great one, both in our eyes and still more in the eyes of the people, for now they talk day and night of this deliverer who has been born to them, and they will not easily forgive those who strove to take him from them. Still, I think that upon certain terms the anger of your judges may be appeased." "What terms?" asked Maya. Now Dimas hesitated and answered, "By the strict letter of the law. If your offence is proved against you, you are worthy of death, every one, unless you yourself are held inviolate because of your hereditary rank as Lady of the Heart. But it may be that the Council will not exact the extreme penalty. It may be that it will satisfy itself by driving out those strangers from our borders instead of driving them from the land of life." "Yet one of them is my husband, Dimas." "True, lady, but the child is born." "I cannot be parted from my husband. Better that we should die together than we should be parted. If the people have no need of him, neither have they any need of me. Let us bid them farewell and go free together. I am weary of this land, Dimas, for here murder dogs our steps, and I am in terror of my life. I desire nothing from my people save liberty to leave them." "But, lady, your people desire something from you. They desire the child. Of these strangers they would be rid by death or otherwise, and you, though of this I am not sure, they may allow to accompany them, but with your child they will never part, for he is their heaven-sent king, the son of prophecy. It comes to this, then, that if the Council should exercise its prerogative of mercy, as it will do if I and my party have sufficient weight, at the best you must choose between the loss of your husband or of your son." Now the face of Maya became drawn with pain, so that she looked as though age had overtaken her. Then she answered, "Go tell those that sent you, Dimas, that these are the words of Maya, Lady of the Heart. My child is dear to me, for he is flesh of my flesh, but my husband is yet dearer, for he is both flesh of my flesh and soul of my soul. Therefore, if I must choose between the two, I choose him who is nearest, for I may have another child, but never another husband." End of chapter 23. By H. Rider Haggard. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Chapter 24. Naua bears witness. Some hours passed, and again the gates were opened, and through them came Tikal and a guard of 5 men. The guard he left by the gates, advancing alone to where we were seated near the far end of the hall. "What would you of us?" asked Maya. "Can you not leave me in peace even here in my dungeon?" "I desire to speak with you alone, Maya." "Then, Tikal, I tell you now what I have told you before, that I will not listen to your word alone. If you have anything to say, say it in the presence of my husband and my friend, or go and leave it unsaid." "You speak roughly to one who comes here in the hope of saving the lives of all of you," he answered. "Still, I will bear with you in this as I have borne with you in much else. Listen. All your crimes are known to me, for Naua, my wife, has revealed them to me. I know how you and that dead rogue Mattai, on whom the curse of heaven has most justly fallen, forged the prophecy and violated the sanctuary, for I have held the proofs of it in my hand. Do you know that we did this to save our lives? Asked Maya. For if we had not done it, Mattai would have murdered us in order that, by removing me, he might assure his daughter in her place. I do not know why you did it, nor do I care, seeing that nothing can lighten such a crime. But I think that you did it in order that you might win yonder white man as a husband. At the least, the thing is done, and vengeance waits you. Vengeance from which there is but one escape. What escape? Asked Maya quickly, for when she learned that Tikal knew everything, all hope had faded from her heart, as from ours. Maya, two people live, and two only, who know this tale, Naua, my wife, and I myself. Till this morning there was but one, for Naua only told me of it when she found that you had not escaped, and this she has done that she may be rid of you whom she hates as her rival. Therefore it was that she would have held me back from pursuing you, and therefore it is that she will appear before the Council of the Heart this night, so that her evidence may ensure your instant death in the pit of waters. But, as it chances, least of anything on the earth do I desire that my eyes should lose sight of you, whom now, as ever, I love better than anything on the earth." Now the señor grew white with rage, and he broke in: "You do well to keep such words to yourself, Tikal, for of this be sure, if you do not, I will add to my crimes, and you shall not leave this place alive. No need to look at your guards. What do I care for your guards, who have but one life to lose? Speak thus again, and before they reach you, you shall be dead." "Let him go on, husband," said Maya. "What can a few insults more or less matter to us now? Continue, most noble Tikal, but for your own sake restrain yourself and say nothing that a husband should not hear." "It is for this reason," he went on, taking no notice of the señor's anger, "that I have come here with a plan to save you all, yes, even this braggart white man who has robbed me of you. If Naua and I are silent, who will know of your crimes? And if the evidence of them is destroyed before your eyes, who is there that can prove them? Now I will be silent at a price. I will even bring the true tablet of the prophecy and the roll of Mattai's confession, and destroy them with fire before you." "You will be silent," said Maya. "But what of Naua? Will she be silent also?" Now Tikal's dark face grew evil with some purpose of his own, though whether it were of murder or of what I do not know. "Leave Naua to me," he said. "Withdraw the charge you made against her of attempting to kill yonder child, and free her thus of the need of appearing this night in the sanctuary, and I swear to you that no word of her dreadful secret shall ever pass her lips. Then you will be tried upon one issue only, that of having broken your oaths by flying the city, a crime that is not beyond forgiveness." "You spoke of a price, Tikal. Tell us, what is this price that we must pay?" "The price is yourself, Maya. Nay, hear me out. And you, white man, keep silent. If you will swear upon the Heart to become my wife within 6 months from this day, then I, on my part, will swear that the white man, your husband, who is not your husband, for he won the consent of the council to his marriage by a trick, shall be suffered to escape the land unharmed, taking with him his friend and so much of our treasures and things needful for their journey as he may desire. I will swear also, and by this you may see how deep and honest is my love for you, that your son shall not be deposed of the place and rank which he holds in the eyes of the people as a heaven-sent deliverer whose coming was foretold by prophecy. My child shall give place to yours, Maya. Once before I held out the hand of peace to you, but you refused it and tricked me, and from that refusal has sprung the death of your father and many other sorrows. Do not refuse again, Maya, lest these sorrows should be increased and multiplied upon you and upon us all. It is no strange or unnatural thing I ask of you, that you should wed the man to whom for many years you were affianced, and take your place as the first lady in this city, instead of giving yourself over with your accomplices to the most infamous of deaths. Yet it is most strange and unnatural to call that a wife should be asked to part thus from her husband. But stay, it is for him to speak, not me, for he may be glad to buy safety at this cost. First, what do you say, Ignacio? Tell me, though I fear your answer, for it is easy to guess, seeing that Tikal offers all that you can desire, freedom and treasure, to enable you to execute your plans. It is true, lady, I replied, that he offers me these things, though whether or no he is able to give them I cannot say. And it is true also that I have no wife here whom I must leave, and no prospect save that of a traitor's death. Still, lady, I remember a certain promise that I made to you yonder in the wilderness, when by your courage you saved your husband's life. And I remember also that it was through me that he, my friend, came to visit this accursed city. Therefore I say, let our fate be one fate. Those are very noble words, friend, she said, such as could have come only from your noble heart. Now, husband, do you speak? I have nothing to say, Maya, replied the señor with a laugh, except that I wonder why you waste time which we have to spend happily together in listening to this fellow's insults. If you bid me to go to save you, perhaps I might think about it, but certainly I will not stir one pace from your side to save myself from any death. It seems that I have got my answer, said Tikal. May none of you regret it tonight when you come to look down into the pit of waters. Well, time presses, and I have much to do before we meet again. And he turned to leave us. Now, as he went, despair took hold of Maya. For a moment she struggled with it, and with herself. Then she cried, "Come back, Tikal!" He came and stood before her in cold silence, and she spoke, addressing her husband in a slow voice. "You are over hasty. My answer is not yet spoken, husband. Tikal, I accept your offer. Prevent Nahua from giving testimony against us, destroy the evidence she holds, and set these men safe with all that they may desire on the further side of yonder mountains, and within 6 months I will become your wife." Now the señor and I stared at each other aghast. "Are you mad?" he said, "or do you speak so in the hope of saving us?" "Would it be wonderful, husband," she answered, If I should wish to save myself and my child, that I have loved you and love you, you know, yet is there any love in the grave? While I live, at least I have my memories. If I die, even these may be taken from me. Go back, husband, go back wealthy to your own people and your old life, and choose some other woman to be your companion. Do not forget me, indeed, but let me become as a dream to you, seeing that for all our sakes this is the best. To you also, Ignacio, I say, go. Our fellowship has brought you little luck. May its severing be more fortunate, and may you at last attain your ends. Tikal, give me your hand, and let us swear the oath." He stepped towards her, his eyes glowing with triumph, but as their fingers touched, she glanced sideways and upwards and saw the doubt and agony written on her husband's face. With a little scream, she sprang to him and threw herself into his arms, saying, "Forgive me. I have tried my best, but this is more than I can do. Oh, weak and foolish that I am, I cannot part from you, no, not even to save your life. Surely you do not think that I should have fulfilled this oath and given myself to him in marriage. No, no, it is to death that I should have given myself when you were gone. But I cannot part with you, I cannot part with you, though my selfishness is your doom." "I rejoice to hear it," said the señor. "Listen, you, Tikal. If you are a man, give me a sword and let us settle this matter face to face. So shall one of us at least be rid of his doubts and troubles." "Surely, white man," answered Tikal, "you must be a fool as well as a rogue. Otherwise you would scarcely ask me to risk my life against yours, which is already forfeit to the law. Farewell, Maya. Long have you fooled and tormented me. Tonight I will repay you all." So he went. It might be thought that after Tikal was gone we should have spoken together of what had passed, and of the dangers before us, but this was not so. I think we felt, all of us, that there was nothing more to be said. It is useless to fight against fate, and it is still more useless to be afraid of him, seeing that whatever we do or leave undone, he has his will of us at last. So we sat and chatted on indifferent things, of our life at the mine of Cumarvo, of that night which we spent in the hacienda at Santa Cruz, of the death of our brave companion Molas, and I know not what besides. Presently the child awoke, and its parents occupied themselves with it, finding resemblance to each other in its tiny features, while I walked up and down the hall, counting the lamps, smoking, and wondering where I should be by this time on the morrow. At length the gates opened, for now it was almost the middle of the night, and there came through them Dimas and a guard of priests. The old man bowed before us and said that the time had come to lead us before the council in the sanctuary, but that we were to have no fear, seeing that from all that he had been able to learn, our offence would be leniently dealt with. Maya asked what was to become of the infant, which could not be left alone, and he replied that she must bring it with her, whereon she began to wrap it in a serape. "Your care is needless," said Dimas. "There is a secret way to the sanctuary from this place, by which I propose to lead you in order that the child, our lord, shall not be exposed to the raw cold of the night." Then he took a bunch of keys from his girdle, and handing them to one who accompanied him, a fellow priest and a member of the council, he commanded him to go forward with several of the escort to open the doors and light lamps in the passage that lay between us and the sanctuary. The priest went, and having waited a while, we followed him, to find him standing by the marble wall which separated the passages from the sanctuary. On seeing us approach, he gave the signs, which were answered from within. Next he opened the false door with a silver key, leaving the key and a bunch to which it was attached fixed in the lock for Dimas to take us as he passed. This, however, the old priest did not do, for he thought that we should all return by this passage, and as we stepped into the sanctuary, he contented himself with closing the door without locking it. Now, once more we stood within the dim and holy place, there to take our trial for offences committed against the laws of the City of the Heart. There was a full gathering of the council, and Tikal, its high priest and president, sat in his seat behind the altar, but I noted with a thrill of hope that Nahua, his wife, was not by his side, nor was she to be found among the members of the council. We took seats that had been prepared for us in the open space before the altar, Maya being placed in the centre, and the señor and myself on either side of her. Next, the priest of the records rose and announced that the first business before the council was the trial of three of its members, namely Maya, Lady of the Heart, her husband, the white man, Son of the Sea, and Ignacio the Wanderer, a lord of the heart from beyond the mountains, upon the charge of having broken their oaths which they took as members of the council. Having read this formal accusation, the priest set out the case against us clearly but briefly. On this very night of the festival of the rising of waters a year ago, he began, you strangers, amongst other things, swore upon the altar, setting in pledge your souls and bodies for the fulfilment of the oath that without the consent of this high brotherhood you would not attempt to leave the gates of the City of the Heart. Yet but the other day you were overtaken and seized in the act of flying across the mountains to the wilderness beyond. Nor is this all your crime, for with you was that infant, born of the white man and the Lady of the Heart, the heaven-sent child of prophecy, of whom you wickedly sought to rob us and the people. Say now, how do you plead to these charges? We plead guilty, answered Maya, but we ask to be heard in our own defence. Listen, lords. Since that night when we were married by your command, my husband and myself have been dogged by murder, and yonder, as high priest of the heart and president of your council, he sits who would have murdered us. I see among you this night some of those who waited on me upon the day of our escape, having the Lord Dimas at the head of them. What did they tell me? That a plot had been discovered, made by Tikal, my cousin, to murder my husband, my child, and my friend Ignacio the Wanderer. They told me also that Tikal would be deposed because of this and his other crimes, and that the Infinite, my arms, would tonight be anointed cacique of the people of the heart. Is it not so, Dimas? It is so, lady, he answered. And learn that you are not the only ones who are on trial this night. Though your case is taken first, that of Tikal, the high priest, and others will follow. But till then, in virtue of his rank and office, he sits as president of our council. Now Tikal sprang from his seat, but Dimas turned upon him and said sternly, Keep silent, lord, or speak only to fulfil the duties of your place. Your judging shall be just, but know that there is no hope of escape for you till it is done, seeing that your guards are disarmed and all the paths are watched. Tikal seated himself again, and Maya went on. On that very night of the coming of the Lord Demas, when I was alone in my chamber, the lady Naua, the wife of Tikal, crept upon me and strove to murder this, my child. Next, she set out the story, telling how the señor and I, hearing her cries for help, had entered the chamber, seized and bound Naua. Then it was, brethren, she went on, that sudden terror took us, and we fled, seeking to escape a land where we could not live in safety from one hour to another. This is our sin, and we leave our punishment in your hands. Surely it was better that we should strive to save the child, so that he might live to play his part, whatever that may be, than that he should be kept here and to be butchered by those whom you have raised up to rule you. When Maya had finished her speech, the señor and I addressed the council in turn, confirming all that she had said, and submitting ourselves to the judgment of the Brotherhood. Now we were commanded to fall back, and took our stand beneath the mask of the nameless god, while the council consulted together, and there we awaited our doom. Presently we were brought forward again, and Tikal spoke to us, saying that our sentence was postponed till the charge against Naua, the daughter of Mattai, and against himself, Tikal, the /cacique and high priest of the City of the Heart, had been considered, adding in a slow and triumphant voice, "Let Naua, the daughter of Mattai, who waits without, be brought into the presence of the Heart." We heard and gathered up our courage to meet the advancing fate, for we knew that death was on us, and that for us there was no more pity or escape. The door was opened, and Naua came through it dressed in the robes of her rank, and wearing the green diadem that could be carried only by the wife or mother of the /cacique. "What is your pleasure with me, lords?" she said proudly, after she had made her obeisance to the altar. Then the priest of the records rose and read the charges, namely, that she had attempted with her own hand to do murder upon the body of the infant child of Maya, Lady of the Heart, and her husband, the white man, also that she had aided and abetted Tikal, her husband, in various acts of cruelty and misgovernment that were alleged against him, asking her what she pleaded in answer. "To the last charge, not guilty," she said. "Let Tikal defend his own sins. To the first, guilty. I did attempt to put an end to yonder brat, but Maya discovered me, and I was caught and bound." "Surely, brethren," said Dimas, rising, "we need carry this matter no farther. We have heard the evidence of the Lady Maya and the others, and now Naua confesses to her crimes. She confesses that she attempted to take the life of him who she knew to be the sacred child, the hope of the people of the Heart. And for such a sin it seems to me that there is but one punishment, though it is terrible, and she who must suffer is the woman and of high rank." "Stay," broke in Naua, "you have not heard me out, and I have the right to speak before I am condemned to die. You charge me with having attempted to take the life of the sacred child, the hope of the people of the Heart. And had I done this, doubtless I should be worthy of your doom, whereas in truth I am worthy of your praise. Lords of the Heart, this child whom you adore, the heaven-sent child of prophecy, whom tonight you would anoint as your /cacique, deposing Tikal, my husband, and who, as you believe, shall be the star to light our race to greatness and to victory, is a living lie, a fraud, and a bastard." Now a confusion broke out among the council, and angry voices called to her to cease her blasphemies, but she won silence and went on. "Hear me out, I pray you, for even if I wished it, I should not dare to speak thus at random, but I am prepared with proof of every word I utter. You think that I would have killed this child to wring the heart of my rival Maya? and indeed I desire to ring it, and that I would set my own son in its place, and indeed I wish to set him there. Yet these were not my reasons for the deed. Lords of the council, listen to a tale the strangest that ever you have heard, and judge between me and Tikal, my husband, and Maya, my rival, and her friends. Mattai, my father, was known to you all, seeing that at the time of his death, and indeed since Tikal was anointed cacique, he stood next to him in place and power among the people of the heart, holding those offices in the brotherhood which now are filled by Dimas, and among them that of keeper of the sanctuary. Yet, lords, Mattai, my father, was no true man. Alas, that I should have to say it, seeing that it was more for my sake that he sinned than for his own, since he loved me and desired my welfare above everything on earth. It was this love of his that ruined him, making him false to his God, to his oaths, and to his country. Thus, in the beginning, he knew that since I was a child I had set my heart upon the Lord Tikal, who was affianced to the Lady Maya, also that I was ambitious and yearned to be great. Therefore it was that he deceived Tikal, pretending that it had been revealed to him by heaven that the Lady Maya and her father were dead in the wilderness. Therefore it was also that when he had persuaded him that she was lost to him for ever, he pressed it upon the Lord Tikal that he should marry me in place of Maya, his affianced, who was dead, promising him in return that he would bring it about that he should be anointed cacique of the people of the heart. All these things and others he did, though at the time I knew nothing of them, and thought in my folly that Tikal married me because he loved me and sought me as the companion of his life and power. Then Zibalbay returned on the night of our marriage feast, and with him came Maya and the strangers, and from that hour my husband began to hate me, because I was his wife in place of Maya, whom he loved. More, as I have learned since, he went to Zibalbay while he lay in prison and offered to resign his place as cacique in his favours for so long as he should live, and no more to oppose his schemes if he would give him Maya in marriage, after I had been put away either by death or by divorce. This Zibalbay would have done, and gladly, but as it chanced, Maya here had set her heart upon the white man during their journeyings together through the wilderness, and refused to be separated from him that she might be palmed off in marriage upon Tikal. Yet he might have won his way, for their case was desperate, and the alternative was death, had not Mattai, my father, found a plan whereby they could be saved, and I remain the wife of the cacique. This was the plan, lords, that a prophecy should be set in the symbol of the heart yonder, such as would deceive the council of the heart, and bring it about that Maya should be given in marriage to the white man whom she lived. Lords, this was done. At the dead of night they crept to the sanctuary, and, opening the heart, they placed within it that tablet that foreshadowed the birth of a deliverer. The rest you know. "It is false," cried many voices. "Such sacrilege is not possible." "It is not false," answered Nahua, "and I will prove to you that the sacrilege was possible. The heart was opened, and the false prophecy forged by my father was placed within it, where it was found by you on the night of the festival of the rising of waters, this day a year ago. But when the holy heart was opened, behold, it was not empty, For in it lay another prophecy, a true prophecy, which was removed from it, that the lie which has deceived you might be set in its place." "Where then is that writing?" asked Dimas. "Here," she answered, drawing the tablet from her breast. "Listen." And she read: "The eye that has slept and is awakened sees the heart and purpose of the wicked. I say that in the hour of the desolation of my city not all the waters of the holy lake shall wash away their sin. Take it, lords, and see for yourselves," she continued, laying the tablet on the altar. "Now listen again and learn how it chanced that this relic came into my keeping. After he had wrought this great sin, the curse of the nameless god fell upon my father, and, as you know, he was smitten with a sore disease. Then it came about that when he lay dying, remorse took him, and he wrote a certain paper which he caused to be witnessed and given to me, together with this tablet. In my hand I hold that paper, lords. Hear it and judge for yourselves whether I have spoken truth or falsehood." And she read aloud the confession of Mattai, that set out every detail of our plot and the manner of its execution. "Now, lords," she added, when the reading was finished and the signatures had been examined, "you will understand how it happened that in my rage at these tidings I strove to kill yonder infant, who has been palmed off upon you as the seed of the god, and I leave it to you to deal with those who planned that fraud." End of chapter 24. The World by H. Rider Haggard. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Chapter 25. Farewell. Nahua ceased and sat down, and so great was the astonishment, or rather the awe, of the council at the tale that she had told, that for a while none of them spoke. At length Dimas rose and said: "Maya, Lady of the Heart, and you strangers, you have heard the awful charge that is brought against you. What do you say in answer to it?" "We say that it is true," answered Maya calmly. "We were forced to choose between the loss of our lives and the doing of this deed, and we chose to live. It was Mattai who hatched the fraud and executed the forgery, and now it seems that we must suffer for his sin as well as for our own. One word more. Ignacio here did not enter into this plot willingly, but was forced into it by my husband and myself, and chiefly by myself." Dimas made no answer, but at a sign the two priests who guarded the altar with drawn swords came forward and drove us into the passage that led from the sanctuary to the hall of the dead, where they shut us in between the double doors, leaving us in darkness. Here, as all was finished, I knelt down to offer my last prayers to heaven, while Maya wept in her husband's arm, taking farewell of him and of her child, which wailed upon her breast. "Truly," he said, "you were wise, wife, when you urged us not to enter this country of the heart. Still, what is done cannot be undone, and having been happy together for a little space, let us die together as bravely as we may, hoping that still together we may awake presently in some new world of peace." While he spoke, the door was open, and the priests with drawn swords led us back into the sanctuary. As Maya crossed the threshold, first of the three of us, she was met by Tikal, who, with a sudden movement, but without roughness, took the child from her arms. Now we saw what was prepared for us, for the stone in front of the altar had been lifted, and at our feet yawned the black shaft from which ascended the sound of waters. They placed us with our backs resting against the altar, but Tikal stood in front, and between him and us lay the mouth of the pit. "Maya, daughter of Zibalbay, and Kachike, lady of the heart, White Man, son of the sea, Ignacio the wanderer, and Mattai the priest, whom, being dead in the body, we summon in the spirit," began Dimas in a cold and terrible voice. "You, by your own confession, are proved guilty of the greatest crimes that can be dreamed of in the wicked brain of man, and executed by his impious hands. You have broken your solemn oaths, taken in the presence of heaven and your brethren. You have offered insult to the God we worship, and violated his sanctuary, and you have palmed off as their God-sent prince upon the people who trusted you, a bastard and a child of sin. For all these and other crimes which you have committed, why we know not, it is not in our power to mete out to you a just reward. That must be measured to you elsewhere, when you have passed our judgment seat, and your names are long forgotten upon the earth. This is the sentence of the Council of the Heart, that your name, Mattai, be erased from the list of the officers of the Heart, that your memory be proclaimed accursed, that your dwelling place be burned with fire, and the site of it strewn with salt, that your corpse be torn from its grave and laid upon the summit of the pyramid till the birds of the air devour it, and that your soul be handed over to the tormentors of the lower world to deal with according to their pleasure for ever and aye. This is the sentence of the Council of the Heart upon you, Maya, daughter of Zibalbay, the Kachike, lady of the heart, White Man, son of the sea, and Ignacio the wanderer, that your names be erased from the roll of the brethren of the heart, and proclaimed accursed in the streets of the city, that you be gagged, bound hand and foot, and chained living to the walls of the sanctuary, and there left before the altar of the god which you have violated, till death from thirst and hunger shall overtake you, that your corpses be laid upon the pyramid as the prey to the birds of the air, and that your souls be handed over to the tormentors of the underworld to deal with according to their pleasure, for ever and for aye. It is spoken. Let the sentence of the council be done, but first, since this bastard babe is too young to sin and suffer punishment, let him be handed into the keeping of the god, that the god may deal with him according to his pleasure." As the words passed his lips, and before we fully understood them, dazed as we were with the terror of our awful doom, Tikal stepped forward, and even now I shudder when I write of it, holding the poor infant, which at this instant began to wail again as though with pain or fear, over the mouth of the pit. Suddenly he let it fall into the depths beneath. The shriek of the agonized mother ran round the walls of the holy place, and before it had died away the señor had leaped forward, leaped like a puma across the gulf of the open well, and gripped Tikal by the throat and waist. He gripped him, and rage giving him strength, he lifted him high above his head and hurled him down the dreadful place whither the child had gone before. With a hoarse scream, Tikal vanished, and for a moment there was silence. It was broken by the voice of Maya crying aloud in accents of madness and despair: "Not all the waters of the Holy Lake shall wash away our sin, yet may they serve to avenge us upon you, O you murderers of a helpless child." As she spoke, followed by the señor and myself, who, I think, alone of all the company guessed her dreadful purpose, Maya ran round the altar, and with both her hands grasped the symbol of the heart which lay upon it. "Forbear!" cried the voice of Dimas, but she did not heed him. Before he or any of us could reach her, dragging at it with desperate strength, she tore the ancient symbol from its bed, and with a loud and mocking laugh had cast it down upon the marble floor, where it shattered into fragments. For 1 second all was still. Then from the altar there came a sudden twang, as of harp strings breaking, that was followed instantly by another and more awful sound, the sound of the roar of many waters. "Fly, fly!" cried a voice. "The floods are loosed, and destruction is upon us and upon the people of the Heart." Now the council rushed, one and all, towards the door of the Sanctuary, but I, Ignatio, by the grace of Heaven, remembered the other door, the secret door through which we had entered, that the priest had left ajar. "This way," I cried in Spanish to the señor, and seizing Maya by the arm, I dragged her with me into the passage. When all three of us were through, I turned to close the door, and as I did so I saw an awful sight. Out of the mouth of the pit before the altar sprang a vast column of water, which struck the roof of the Sanctuary with such fearful force that already the massive marble blocks began to rain down upon the crowd of fugitives who struggled, and in vain, to open the door and escape into the Hall of the Dead. One other thing I saw: it was the corpse of Tikal, vomited from the depth into which the señor had hurled him, a shapeless mass ascending and descending with the column of water as alternately it struck and rebounded from the roof. Then, before the flood could reach it, I closed the door, and, possessing myself of the bunch of keys that still hung in the lock, we fled up the passages and stairs till we came to the hall where we had been imprisoned. Here, however, we dared not stay, for already strange gurgling sounds struck upon our ears, and we felt the mighty fabric of the pyramid shake and quiver beneath the blows of the imprisoned waters as they burst their way upward and outward. Seizing lamps, we ran to the copper gates at the head of the hall, and not without trouble found the key that opened them. We had no time to spare, for as we left it, the water rushed in at the further end of the chamber, a solid wave that in some few seconds filled it to the depth of 6 or 8 feet. On we fled before the advancing flood, and well it was for us that our course lay upwards, for otherwise we must have been drowned as we searched for the keys to open the different gates and doors. But now fortune, which for so long had been our foe, befriended us, and the end of it was that we reached the summit of the pyramid just as the dawn began to break. The dawn was breaking, and seldom perhaps has the light of day revealed a more wonderful or terrible sight to the eyes of man. Outside the gates of the courtyard of the pyramid were gathered a great multitude of people, waiting to be admitted to celebrate the feast that on this day of the year was to be held according to the custom upon the summit of the pyramid. Indeed, they should have already been assembled there, but it was the rule that the gates could not be opened until the council had left the Sanctuary, and this night the council was late. As we looked at them, a cry of fear and wonder rose from the multitude, and this was the cause of it. Along that street which ran from the landing place to the great square rushed a vast foam-topped wall of water, 20 feet or more in depth by 100 broad. Now we learned the truth. The symbol on the altar, I know not how, was connected with the secret and subterranean sluice gates which for many generations had protected the City of the Heart from flood. When it was torn from its bed, these sluice gates fell, and the waters rushing in sought their natural level, which at this season of the year was higher than the housetops of the city. On the summit of the pyramid were two priests who tended the sacred fire and made ready for the service to be celebrated. Seeing us emerge from the watch house, they ran towards us, wringing their hands and asking what dreadful thing had come to pass. I replied that we did not know, but that seeing the water gather in our prison, we had fled from it. How we had fled they never stopped to ask, but ran down the stairway of the pyramid, only to return again presently, for before they reached its base their escape was cut off. Meanwhile the terror thickened, and the doom began. Everywhere the waters spread and gathered, replenished from the inexhaustible reservoir of the vast lake. Whole streets went down before them to vanish suddenly beneath their foaming face, while from the crowd below rose one continuous shriek of agony. Maya heard it, and casting herself face downwards upon the surface of the pyramid, that she might not see her handiwork, she thrust her fingers into her ears to stop them, while the señor and I watched fascinated. Now the flood struck the people, some thousands of them, who were gathered on the rising ground at the gates of the enclosure of the temple, and lo, in an instant they were gone, borne away as withered leaves are borne before a gale. Ere a man might count 10, the most of the population of the City of the Heart had perished. For a little while some of the more massive houses stood, only to vanish one by one in silence, as it seemed, for now the roar of the advancing waters mastered all other sounds. Before the sun was well up it was finished, and of that ancient and beautiful city, Heart of the World, there remained nothing to be seen except the tops of trees and the upper parts of the pyramids of worship rising above the level of the lake. The golden city was no more. It was gone, and with it all its hoarded treasures, its learning, and its ancient faith, and that which for many generations had been held to be a myth had now become a myth indeed. One short hour had sufficed to sweep out the existence, the ripe fruit of the labour of centuries, and with it the dwindling remnant of the last pure race of Indians who followed the customs and the creeds of my forefathers. Doubtless their day was done, and the power above us had decreed their fall. Still, so vast and sudden a ruin was a thing awful to behold, or even to think upon. What I wondered, would the founders of this great city and the fashioners of its solemn pyramids and sanctuary have thought and felt, could they have foreseen the manner of its end? Would they have set the holy symbol so cunningly upon the altar that the strength of a maddened woman, by tearing it away, could bury altar, temple, town, and all who lived therein for ever beneath the surface of the lake? This they did to protect their homes and fanes against the foe, so that, if need were, they could prefer destruction to dishonour. But they did not foresee, indeed they never dreamed, that this foe might be of their own race, and that the hand of one of her children would bring disaster utter and irredeemable upon the proud head of their holy stronghold, the city Heart of the World. Now, foot by foot, the waters found their level, filling up the cup in which the town had stood, and the bright sunlight shone upon their placid surface as they rippled round the sides of the pyramid and over the flat roofs of the submerged houses. Here and there floated a mass of wreckage, and here and there a human corpse, over which already the water eagles began to gather. That was all. Presently Maya rose to her knees and looked out from beneath the hollow of her hand, for the light was dazzling there upon the white summit of the pyramid. Then she flung her arms above her head and uttered a great and bitter cry. "Behold my handiwork," she cried, "and the harvest of my sin. Oh, my father, that dream which you sent to haunt my sleep was dreadful, but it did not touch the truth. Oh, my father, the people whom you would have saved are dead. Lost is the city that you loved, and it is I who have destroyed them. Oh, my father, your curse has found me out indeed, and I am accursed." Some such words as these she spoke, then began to laugh, and turning to the señor, she said, "Where is the child, husband?" He could not answer her, but she took no note of it, only she bent her arms, rocking them and crooning as though the infant lay upon her breast. Then came first to him and next to me, saying, "Look, is he not a pretty boy? Am I not happy to be the mother of such a boy?" I made pretence to look, but the sight of her pitiful face and of the empty arms as she swayed them was so dreadful that I was forced to turn away and hide my tears, for now I saw the truth. Weariness, sorrow, and shock had turned her brain. She was mad. We led her to the watch house where there was shelter, and the priests who had returned gave us food so soon as we could make them understand that we needed it, for they too were almost mad. Here her last illness seized the Lady Maya. It began with a hardening of the breast, which changed presently to fever. 2 days and nights, with breaking hearts, we nursed her there upon the pyramid, striving not to listen to her sick ravings and piteous talk about the child, and at dawn upon the 3rd day she died. Before she died, her senses returned to her, and she spoke to her husband beautiful and tender words, which seem almost too holy to set down. "Alas," she ended, "as my heart foretold me, I have brought you nothing but evil, and now the time has come for me to go away from you. Ignatio was right, and we were wrong, or rather I was wrong. We should have died together a year ago, if that was needful, sooner than to commit the sin we worked in the sanctuary, for then at least our hands would have been clean, nor would the blood of the people have rested on my head. Yet, believe me, husband, that when I did the deed of death I was mad, for I had seen our child murdered before my eyes, and I heard a voice within me bidding me to be avenged. Well, it is done, and I have suffered for it, and perhaps shall suffer more. Yet I think that I was but the hand or the instrument of fate, predestined to bring destruction upon a race already doomed, and on a faith outworn. That faith I no longer believe in, for you have taught me another worship. Therefore I do not fear the vengeance of the God of my people. May my other sins find forgiveness, if they are sins, for it was love of you that led me to them. Husband, I trust that you may escape from this ill-omened place and live on for many years in happiness. But most of all, I trust that in the land which you will reach at last, you may find us waiting for you, the child and I together. Farewell to you. This is a sad parting, and my life has been short and sorrowful. Yet I am glad to have lived it, since it brought me to your arms, and however little I may have deserved it, I think that you loved me truly, and will love my memory even when I am dead. To you also, Ignacio, farewell. You have been a true friend to me, though I brought you no luck, and at times I was jealous of you. Think kindly of me if you can, as in the old days before we met. Comfort my husband with your friendship, though had it not been for me you might have attained your ends." Then once more she turned to the señor, and in a gasping and broken voice prayed of him not to forget her or her child. I heard him answer that this she need not fear, as his happiness died with her, and, even if he should escape, he thought that they would not be parted for very long, nor could any other woman take her place within his heart. She blessed him and thanked him, caressing his face with her dying hands, and, unable to bear more of such a sight, I left them together. An hour later the señor came from the watch house, and though he did not speak, one glance at him was enough to tell me that all was over. So died Maya, Lady of the Heart, the last of the ancient royal blood of the Indian princes. Myself alone excepted, a very sweet and beautiful woman, though at times headstrong, passionate, and capricious. Now, while Maya lay dying, we learned that some Indians still lived on the mainland, men and women who had been sent there to tend the crops, for we saw a canoe hovering round what once had been the island of the Heart. The two priests who were with us on the pyramid tried to signal to it to come to our rescue, but either those in the boat did not see us, or they were terror-stricken and feared to approach the pyramid. Still, we kept the body all that day, hoping that help might reach us so that we could take it ashore for burial. Towards night, however, when none came, we made another plan. On the roof of the watch house the sacred fire still burned, for the two priests had tended it, more from custom, I think, than for any other reason. Hither we brought some of the gilded stools that were used by the nobles of the Heart on days of festival, and all the fuel that had been stored to replenish the fire, building the whole into a funeral pyre around and above the brazier. Then, as it caught, we carried out the body of Maya, wrapped in her white robes, and laid it upon the pyre and left it. Presently the great pile was alight and burning so fiercely that it lit up the whole summit of the pyramid and the darkness which surrounded it. All that night we watched it, while the two priests lamented and beat their breasts after their fashion, till at length it flared itself away, and the holy fire that had burned for more than 1,000 years died down and was extinguished. It seemed very fitting that the final office of this ancient and consecrated flame should be to consume the body of the last of the royal race who had tended it for so many generations. Towards dawn a wind sprang up with drizzling rain, and when we approached the place at daybreak, it was to find it cold and blackened. No spark remained alight, and no ash or fragment could be seen of her who was once the beautiful and gracious Lady of the Heart. Now we set ourselves, sadly enough, to find a means of escape to the mainland, which indeed it was time to do, for the waters working in the centre were sapping the foundations of the great pyramid, portions of which had already fallen away. Our plan was to form a raft by lashing together some benches that were at hand, and on it to float or paddle ourselves to the shore. This, however, we were spared the pains of doing, for when our task was half completed, we saw a large canoe manned by 3 Indians advancing toward us, and signalled to them to paddle round to the steps of the pyramid. They did so, and taking with us all the food and such few articles of value as were to be found in the watch house, the 4 of us embarked, though not without difficulty, for the current ran so strongly round the crumbling angles of the pyramid that it was hard to bring the canoe up to the stairs. From the Indians we learned that those on shore were so overwhelmed with horror at the catastrophe which had fallen upon their holy city that they did not dare to approach the place where it had stood. But when, on the previous night, they saw the great flame of Maya's funeral pyre, they knew that men still lived upon the pyramid, who, as they thought, were signalling to them for help, and ventured out to save them. They asked us how it came about that the waters had overwhelmed the city, which had stood among them safely from the beginning of time. We replied that we did not know, and the priests with us, now that they had escaped with their lives, seemed too prostrated to tell our deliverers that we had been imprisoned in the hollow of the pyramid, even if they knew that this was so. On reaching the shore we found a little gathering of awe-stricken Indians. Perhaps there may have been 150 of them, the sole survivors of the people of the Heart, unless indeed a few still lived on the high land of those portions of the island of the Heart that as yet had not been submerged. Open-mouthed and almost without comment, they listened to the terrible tale of the sudden and utter destruction of their city. When it was done, one among them suggested that the white man should be killed, as without doubt he had brought misfortune and vengeance of heaven upon their race, but this proposal seemed to find no favour with the rest of them. Indeed, had they known the part which we played in the disaster, I doubt if they would have found the spirit to make an end of us. On the other hand, they gave us what food and clothing we required, and even weapons such as machetes, bows and arrows, and blowpipes, and left us to go our way. Often I have wondered what became of them, and if any of their number or of their children still survive. So we turned our faces to the mountains, and on the 2nd day we crossed them safely, for Maya had told us the secret of the passage through the rocks, which under her guidance we had passed blindfolded. Thus at length, having looked our last upon the blue waters of the holy lake, sparkling in the sunshine, above the palaces of the city and the bones of its inhabitants, did we leave that accursed country of the Heart, where so much loss and evil had befallen us. End of chapter 25. By H. Rider Haggard. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Envoy. My friend, now I, Ignacio, have finished writing that story of how I came to visit the golden city of the Indians, which so many have believed to be fabulous, and that today exists no more. It is a strange story, and I trust that it may interest you to read it when I am dead and buried. Perhaps you would like to know the details of our homeward journey. But in truth I have neither the strength nor the patience to set them down. It was a terrible journey, and once we both of us fell ill with fever from which I thought that we should not recover. But recover we did by the help of some wandering Indians who nursed us, and at length reached this place from which we had fled for our lives nearly 2 years before. We found the hacienda deserted, for it had the reputation of being haunted, though some of the Indian dependents, or rather slaves, of that great villain, Don Pedro Moreno, still worked patches of the land. Well, the señor took a fancy to stay in the place, for it was here they had first seen his wife. So he sold that girdle of emeralds which Maya took from the chest of ornaments and gave to me when we were imprisoned for the first time in the hall of the pyramid. Do not lose the clasp, friend, for it is the only remaining relic of the people of the heart. And with the proceeds we bought at a cheap rate from the government of the day, who had entered into possession of them, this house and the wide lands round it that I have cultivated ever since. For, my friend, now my ambitions were finished. I had played my last card, and it had failed me, and, albeit with a sorrowful mind, I abandoned my hopes for the regeneration of the Indians, which I had no longer the means or the health and vigour to attempt. Also, I was no more Lord of the Heart, for with its counterpart it was lost in the sanctuary yonder beneath the waters of the holy lake, and with the ancient symbol went much of my power. For 5 years the señor and I lived here together, but I think that during all this time he was dying. He who used to be so strong in body and merry in mind never regained his health or spirits from that hour when Maya passed upon the pyramid, and though he seldom spoke of her, I know that night and day she was always present in his thoughts. Twice in the spring seasons he suffered from calenturas, as we call the fever of the country, which left him sallow in face and shrunken in body. When the spring came round for the third time, I begged him to go to Mexico for change, returning to the hacienda in the summer. In vain. He would not do it. Indeed, I do not think that he cared whether he lived or died. So the end of it was that the calentura took him again, and die he did in my arms, happily as a child that falls asleep. Now my days are accomplished also, and having failed in all things and known much sorrow and disappointment, I go to join him. My friend, farewell. Perhaps you will think of me from time to time, and though you are a heretic, send up a prayer to heaven for the welfare of the soul of the old Indian. Ignacio. The End. Heart of the World by H. Rider Haggard, read by Paul Hansen.